All right, Shalom. I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who taught me this truth. And double salutations to all you Akim out there laboring, the house of David, the elect, that's pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom to you, brothers, and shalom to the elect. I'm back with another quick lesson through the Holy Spirit, the Rakah Kodash. And Lord willing, this is the year that it all happens.
Still didn't follow his advice, and I think it was a very, the Middle East is rapidly changing. There are prophets that say the world will come to an end in the Middle East. You know that, right? And we have weapons today that are so scary. When you look, I rebuilt them all. And when you look at the weapons we have today, the biggest threat we have in the world today is nuclear weapons. And we have other weapons, too, that are devastating. But the nuclear weapons, the biggest threat we have in the world today, and that's what I was talking about de-escalation with both.
So jumping into this quick news here, this is from the telegraph.co.uk. The headline it reads, it says, "Is this the year Trump bombs Iran?" Okay. Everything according to prophecy is lining up as Israel draws America into nuclear war in the so-called Middle East. Or as the Lord said, he was going to gather the nations in the valley of Yahweh Shaphat. This is the book of Joel, chapter 3 and verse 1, and it reads, it says, "For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem." All right, the Lord is coming to deliver the nation of Israel, starting with his elect. And we are in those days and at that time. It says, verse 2, Joel 3 and 2, "I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land." All right, so the Lord is coming to vindicate his people. Okay, starting with the elect. It tells us the same thing in Isaiah, the 34th chapter, how the Lord is going to pretty much avenge his temple, his people. This is in NLT, Joel 3 and 2. It says, I will gather the armies of the world." You see, the Lord is going to gather all the nations' armies of the world for this last war's war. "I will gather the armies of the world into the valley of Yahweh Shaphat. There will I judge them." See? "For harming my people, my special possession, for scattering my people among the nations and dividing up my land." So this is the payback. The Lord said the same thing in Zechariah, those who had a hand in destroying Jerusalem. All right, Zechariah 14 and 12, real quick. All right, Zechariah 14 and 12, it says, "And this shall be the plague." All right, the nuclear destruction is part of the plagues. All right, "And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord, Yahweh Shem Shai, will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem." You see? So this is the recompense against the nations for what they have done against Jerusalem, the Lord's people. "The Lord, Yahweh Shem Shai, will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth." So that's the destruction. All right, the Lord is going to melt these nations away. You see that? So this is what's going on here. The focus again is the so-called Middle East. All right, the valley of Yahweh Shaphat. All right, this is from the AI here. It says the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, also known as the valley of Josaphat, is traditionally identified as the Kindred Valley, which lies between Jerusalem and the Mount of Olives. It says, however, some scholars suggest it may refer to a symbolic or indeterminate location rather than a specific geographic site, right? So the point, again, according to this map here, the Lord is going to gather those nations in that region. Okay? The valley of Yahweh-Shaphat, the war of Armageddon. This is where it's all going to take place. As Trump said, the end of the world, so he says some prophets say that the end of the world will come to an end in the Middle East. So there you have it. Zephaniah 3:8, it says, therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, into the day that I rise up to the prey, for my determination is to gather the nations. You see? Again, he's going to gather the nations, right? Is to gather the nations that I may assemble the kingdoms to pour upon them mine indignation. All right. He's going to use the nuclear missiles, and he's also going to use the angels, the chariots. All right. They're going to shoot down that concentrated fire because the Lord is going to appear in the midst of World War III. Even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. So this thing is going down, man. Again, Lord willing, this is the year. All right, let's get into this video here. All right, this came out 3 days ago from the Young Turks. It says, report Pentagon preparing for nuclear war with Iran.
The Pentagon has begun preparations for a potential war with Iran, and that's according to reports that are coming from Ken Klippenstein, a former colleague of TYT, and someone who's now writing independently over at Substack. And they're even considering, apparently, a scenario in which nuclear weapons could be used. So let's break this down. Let's see what the sources are. Let's see how much reality there is behind that possibility. So on Tuesday, Klippenstein reported that Pentagon and company contracting documents that he had obtained describe a unique joint staff planning effort underway in Washington and in the Middle East to refine the next generation of a major regional conflict with Iran.
Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 20, and it reads, it says, therefore hear the counsel of the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, that he have taken against Edom, in his purposes that he have proposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. You see that? So as we see again, according to prophecy, all right, Israel is drawing America into this war. Okay. And as a result, all right, America, both America and the land of Israel are going to be wiped out according to prophecy. All right. So everything that the Lord is doing, he's moving, he's causing these prophecies again to accelerate very, very quickly, man. All right. This thing can happen. A lot can happen in a matter of days, weeks, or months that can change the course of the earth, man. You know?
So that planning effort is basically being referred to as a seed project. That's what they've dubbed it. Part of the reason why the project exists is that the Pentagon is re-evaluating Iran's war capabilities. I hope they're taking their time in re-evaluating Iran's war capabilities. I hope they're maybe a little more competent than what we experienced during the Bush administration. But please make no mistake about it. The neocons are back. Okay, they're in charge. Don't let anyone think for a second that the Trump Pentagon is any different from the Bush era Pentagon. Full to the rim, okay, with these neocons who are just salivating for a war with Iran, and they're literally talking about the potential of nuclear weapons. Okay, so let me continue. While the Pentagon is no longer concerned that Iran could launch a ground invasion of their neighboring countries, which should be the most important thing, right? They are worried about the combination of narrow pinprick attacks by proxies, Iran's various covert and influence campaigns, and its use and proliferation of long-range drones and missiles, especially to Russia. So US Central Command, or CENTCOM, is the Pentagon's regional command that oversees the Middle East specifically. And it's also the division that is working on the war plans, I should say, against Iran. So one document in that plan warns of the distinct possibility of the war escalating outside of the United States government's intention and impacting the rest of the region, demanding a multifaceted approach.
Ooh, man, it's getting hot out there, man. All right, Revelation chapter 9, verse 12. And it reads, it says, one woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. All right, World War II and World War III. You see? Verse 13, and the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before the Most High, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loose, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men. All right, so you have the three categories of men. You know, you have the sons of God, which are the Israelites. You have the sons of men, which are the heathen, and you have the sons of the wicked, which are the Edomites, which will represent the third part of men. All right, verse 16, it says, and the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them going into the 200 million missiles that are going to be shut off. All right, because remember, what we're looking at here is the talks, or what we're hearing about is the talks of nuclear missiles, nuclear war. All right, it says, verse 17, and thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them having breastplates of fire and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. All right, so the apostle John was describing the nuclear warheads, the nuclear missiles. All right, as he saw them being shot from those silos. All right, from one point of the earth to the other. Right. It says, verse 18, by these three was the third part of men killed, going into pretty much Esau's dominion. All right, his world. By these three was the third part of men killed, by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. Verse 19, for their power is in their mouth and in their tails, for their tails were like unto serpents and had heads, and with them they do hurt, going into the pretty much the total eradication of Esau's hegemony, all right, by the way of this nuclear destruction, all right, Armageddon, you see?
And so according to a retired senior military officer who was actually briefed on these plans, they include the possibility of using nuclear weapons. So let me just pause and say, for the young men who were concerned about the continuation of the Biden administration through the election of Kamala Harris, these were the same people who were concerned about World War III, about things getting so out of control that maybe the United States would even consider re-implementing a draft. They were worried about the possibility of nuclear war, not in regard to Israel and Iran or the Middle East. They were concerned that nuclear war would break out as a result of the conflict in Ukraine. But now you have the Trump administration, and we're hearing from the Pentagon in the Trump administration that they're, considering scenarios in which nuclear weapons might be part of the scenario. Okay, but let's just go back to what that retired senior military officer said. One might find it extraordinary to think that nuclear weapons are even considered, the officer tells us, but we have entered a new era. I don't love the fact that I keep thinking about Tucker Carlson, of all people, being correct on the issue of Iran and urging the Trump administration to avoid engaging in a war with Iran on behalf of Israel. But we're going to do it anyway, because Tucker Carlson doesn't own the government. The Israel lobby owns the government. And who cares about American soldiers? They're expendable. Who cares about civilian lives? I mean, anything for the Israel lobby, anything. Okay, there's more. The officer stated that the nuclear plans aren't necessarily related to Donald Trump's re-election, rather that these would be the three reasons for reintroducing nuclear deterrence. So the argument here is it's not like Trump's over at the Pentagon telling them, oh, you should threaten nuclear weapons or the use of nuclear weapons against Iran. But nonetheless, I mean, who's the head of the Pentagon right now? who are the individuals within the Trump administration who have only escalated the conflict in the Middle East, certainly with this notion that we should take over the Gaza Strip, ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip of Palestinians. I mean, it's just, but anyway, so here are the.
Yeah, real quick, I want to add on to what she said, because this is how you know again that this thing is very close to go off. Because here's another point. This is from newstarget.com. It says Gaza's death toll surpasses 50,000 as Israel's relentless assault continues. So they're just unaliving these people relentlessly out there, man. And see, these are the things that people are in uproar across the planet. So again, this is how you know that war is very close with between with America and Israel, man. Okay, this thing is about to come to that climax here. All right, it says Gaza's death toll surpasses 50,000, including 14,500 children, with over 113,000 wounded. The actual toll may exceed 186,000 due to indirect deaths from famine, disease, and missing victims under rubble. Israel's bombardment has destroyed infrastructure, targeted hospitals, and displaced 90% of Gaza's population. Israel rejected a ceasefire deal, vowing to escalate despite global condemnation of alleged ethnic cleansing. Right, because they're trying to get that whole land. And like I said before, let me pull this up real quick. Bear with me, let me find that article. Here we go. So this came out a couple of weeks ago, but it says the West's support for Israel is the number one threat to free speech. You see that? So a lot of this stuff that's going on right now with them bombing these people and these small hats being called out and the West's support for Israel, people are speaking about these things, and this is going to result in the famine of the word. All right, these small hats are behind, pushing this this famine of truth, if you will, man. All right, because people are talking about, as we just read here, let's go back. People all over the planet are condemning what these Amalekites are doing to these people over there, man. So again, everything is escalating towards the end of Esau's, power, the end of his rule, right? And these devils are not going to stop. It says the confirmed death toll in Gaza has now exceeded 50,000 Palestinians, according to Gaza's health ministry, marking a grim milestone in Israel's military campaign that has drawn widespread condemnation as a genocide. The ministry reported Sunday that at least 50,021 people have been killed, including 14,500 children, with an additional 113,274 wounded. It says, and the rest reads on. All right. So yeah, it's getting terrible out here, man. So every day is closer to nuclear war. All right, let's go back to let's play some more of that video, and we'll grab some more scriptures. All right.
The three reasons for reintroducing nuclear deterrence, according to the Pentagon. So to directly deter Iran from developing nuclear weapons, or then from using them. A great way of doing that would be to re-implement the Iran nuclear deal, which prevented them from, developing nuclear weapons. So if you don't want to blame Trump, I'm sorry, the president who actually ripped up the Iran nuclear deal was Donald Trump. But let me continue. To convince Israel not to use its own nuclear weapons, that is by making it clear that the US equally would or could preempt Iran if something dire happened. Also, to dissuade Saudi Arabia from perceiving that it has to develop its own nuclear weapons because Iran is doing so. So here are the scenarios in which the United States would authorize the use of nuclear weapons against Iran according to these plans. So one, with the CENTCOM commander requesting the use of nuclear weapons mostly to stave off Iranian conventional military success. And two, in a top-down order that is by the president, mostly as a demonstration to signal to Iran. In other words, the red button could very well be in Donald Trump's hands, or his decision to use nuclear weapons could be. So Tensions are rising as Iran pushes back against the Trump administration. For instance, 2 weeks ago, Trump wrote a letter to Ayatollah Khamenei. That's Iran's supreme leader, a theocrat. Now, he sends this letter as a gesture to start talks about the country's nuclear program. And according to reports, the letter contained a 2-month deadline to reach a new nuclear deal. He could have kept the old nuclear deal in place, but Obama negotiated it, and Trump has to reverse anything a Democratic president does, even if the Democratic president actually secured a win. In this case, the Iran nuclear deal was a win. But make no mistake about it, Netanyahu doesn't want an Iran nuclear deal. He wants the US to go to war against Iran on his behalf.
There you go. That's what it's all about. As we just read. All right, the least of the flock should draw them out. All right, Israel is going to draw America into this war. This is prophecy. This is the will of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Real quick. All right, and see, a couple of days ago you had the Houthis. They were bombing military ships out there in the Red Sea. So now, Trump is proposing to drop a missile on Iran as a result of all of this, right? That's pretty much what's going on in the midst of this, right? This is 2 Ezra 15 and verse 28. It says, "Behold, in horrible vision and the appearance thereof from the east," the Middle East, all right, as the focus of this lesson, all the attention right now, of course, is to the Middle East, all right? That's the spot. That's where it's all going to go down. It says, verse 29, "Where the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots," all right, going into the Ishmaelite nations. All right, you have something called the axis of resistance, with all those so-called Middle East nations, Iran, Yemen, Syria, so on and so forth. You could look it up. I did a lesson going into it before. All right, so these Ishmaelite nations, these Palestinian nations, all right, they're ready for war against the U.S. and Israeli hegemony. All right, it says, "Where the nations of the dragons of Arabia should come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, that all that which hear them may fear and tremble. Also the Carmenians raging in wrath," all right, the Carmenians going back to the Persians, which would be Iran, "raging in wrath shall go forth as wild boars, as of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians," which is tied back to America, right? Because the modern day Assyrians would be the Edomites, the America, all right? It says, "And then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering their nature, and if they turn to themselves, conspiring together in a great power to persecute them, then these shall be troubled, bled, and keep silence through their power, and shall flee." Verse 33, it says, "And from the land of the Assyrians shall the enemy besiege them, and consume some of them, and their host shall be fear and dread and strife among their kings." All right, so something is bound to take place even in America, man. Dealing with these sleeper cells, all right, some type of false flag event. It says, verse 34, it says, "Behold, clouds from the east and from the north unto the south, and they are very horrible to look upon, for the wrath and storm," going into the to that nuclear destruction, as we read in Revelation 9:12 through 15. All right, the third part of what it said, the third part of the earth. Matter of fact, let me go back. The third part of men. All right, going into Esau's dominion being totally annihilated, man. That's the time. Going back, it says, verse 35. They shall smite one upon another, and they shall smite down a great multitude of stars upon the earth, even their own star, and blood shall be from the sword unto the belly. All right, it's going to be much death. All right, it says the same thing Isaiah 34 about the how the Lord was going to melt the mountains with their blood, man. All right, it's going to be a lot of dead bodies. Verse 36, and dung of men unto the camels who? Ho. It says, and there should be great fearfulness and trembling upon the earth, and they that see the wrath shall be afraid, and trembling shall come upon them. Right? World War III, all right, global disaster. You see what I'm saying? And this is, we're talking about, worldwide, man. The whole earth is going to be affected. Verse 38, it says, and then shall there come great storms from the south and from the north and another part from the west. All right, going into the world's armies, being gathered for this nuclear war. Verse 39, and strong winds shall arise from the east and shall open it, and the cloud which he raised up in wrath, and the star stirred to cause fear toward the east, and west wind shall be destroyed. All right, so pretty much, those going into those troops on the battleground, being destroyed in nuclear war, World War III. You see the missiles coming down, the warheads coming down, right? It says, verse 40, the great and mighty cloud shall be puffed up, full of wrath, and the star, that they may make all the earth afraid, and them that dwell therein, and they shall pour out over every high and eminent place an horrible star, right? Those missiles, hitting the various nations. It says, verse 41, fire and hell and flying swords and many waters, that all fields may be full, and all the rivers with abundance of great waters. All right, so it's going to be, land masses, destroyed. Many people, put to death. You see what I'm saying? It says, verse 43 or verse 42, and they shall break down the cities and walls, mountains and hills, trees of wood and grass and meadows and their corn. Right? You're talking about destruction of nations, man, cities. It says, and they should go steadfastly unto Babylon and make her afraid, right? Because Babylon is going to get hit with those missiles too. All right, but this all ties again of America or Israel drawing America into this war. All right, all the nations are going to be gathered up, as we saw here, according to the map. All right, and this is where it's all going to go down. So let's finish out a little bit more, and we'll wrap this up.
And make no mistake, we will do it. I have no doubt at this point that we're going to do it. It's so unhinged and so ridiculous, even as the Pentagon acknowledges that Iran's not looking to do any kind of ground invasion against one of its neighboring countries. I mean, just think about the military capability and the defense capacity that Israel has. I mean, and we're still having a conversation, given what the Pentagon has acknowledged, about doing a war against Iran, engaging in war against Iran. Okay, great.
Yeah, so that's it, man. It's all going down, man, at the end of the day. Again, Lord willing, this is the year, all right, that the Lord allows this prophecy to be activated, Revelation 11 and 14. And it reads, it says, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Yeah, I pray this quick lesson was edifying. Shalom.